let's get real. Failure sucks. Now, I'm not here to sugarcoat it or give you some fluffy little failure is a stepping stone speech. No, I'm talking about that gut punch moment when everything in you screams, what's the fucking point? Why am I even trying? Why do I even care, right? Because today we're going to talk about how that happened to me. Yes, that's right. My brain went full spiraling, dragging me through every insecurity I've ever had. It was that bad, right? But the thing is that there's actually science behind why our brains do this. And more importantly, there's a way to break that science from repeating itself, aka your patterns, right? So if you've ever felt like you're good at everything but not good enough at anything, this episode is for you. Let's talk about what's really happening in your brain when you fail and how to stop letting it define you. Let's fucking go!
Welcome to the carnival. I'm the ringleader now. They won't hear a sound at all as I bury you 6 feet underground.
This wasn't a little hiccup. Basically, I straight up got this email today saying that my national coaching assessment was declined. All right. Why? Because I didn't use enough coaching words. Now, coaching, especially for an ICF certification, it's all about guiding the client through their insights, right? Not leading them to conclusions. You're not leading the conversation. It's about saying questions like, what would success look like for you in this moment? How does that resonate with you? What's possible if you shift your approach? These are the kinds of questions you're supposed to ask. But what do? Well, if any of you know me, I dive deep. I go for the root, the pain, the subconscious shit that people don't realize they're avoiding or they're too scared to realize, right? So when my client was lost in this session that I sent in for assessment, she had kids screaming in the background. And of course, I stepped in trying to help her with this, trying to guide her through this, because that's what I do. I bring clarity. But apparently in the coaching world, I wasn't coaching, right? Well, not even apparently. We all know, anybody that knows how coaching goes, right? And it really broke me. I took it so fucking personal, okay? I didn't sit there and calmly say, oh, well, failure is a learning experience, right? Because that's what everybody wants to tell you. You've got this. No. I had a full-blown meltdown in the shower, like ugly crying, okay? I was bawling my eyes out because in that moment, it wasn't just about this one assessment, right? My brain was like, oh, you think this sucks? Let's take a trip down memory lane, Angela. Like sometimes, our brain, we're like, why do you hate us so much, right? So my brain was sitting there and then it starts going on all this stuff, right? It's like, remember when you failed at nursing because you chose to step away and raise your kids? Of course, I wasn't thinking about the fact that I chose to do that so that I could work on my kids and focus on my kids, right? Of course, I didn't do that. Remember every time you were good at something, but not good enough to be the best at it? So, of course, I'm always good, but I'm never good enough. That's what I'm thinking. What's the point of even trying so damn hard when I always feel like I'm just shy of making it, right? What's the fucking point? If I'm almost there, always at the finish line and never doing it, right? Spiral activated. Boom. Chaos. You're welcome, Angela's brain. But the thing is I let myself fall apart. But I kept moving, right? Literally, I knew my brain was flooded with cortisol, so I'd let the tears flow. I even tried to stop myself and I was like, wait, no. Like, I'm fucking hurting right now. Why? Why am I telling myself this, right? And so I said, I have no idea what I'm going to do about this, but I know I'm going to cry. I kept my body moving, hence why I went in the shower, right? I wanted to get those endorphins going. Obviously, I'm not thinking critically, so I'm not like, ooh, I got to move my endorphins. No, I'm just thinking I got to keep going because I can't just sit in this because then I will spiral even worse, right? And you know, the thing that happened to me is that going through those movements, it gave me just enough clarity to take action. No, not from a place of like suppressing my feelings, but from actually expressing them. So naturally, I did what anybody would do. She said sarcastically. I sat down, I wrote the rawest, most honest email of my life. Okay. I was like, I'm upset. I'm allowed to be fucking upset. I'm frustrated. I know I'm a damn good coach and then I do amazing work, right? It's ridiculous that this was a fail when I was coaching with kids in the background. In my mind, I'm like, good job, right? So yeah, that's a win because I had that session even though there were chaotic circumstances and I survived. So I'm like, yeah, resiliency. No. Then they called me because I opened up about this and I was like, well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm fucking pissed, right? And I just went off and I expressed myself. I didn't go from a place of attacking. I expressed my feelings on it. I said, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand how I'm defined by this. You know what she told me? She said, that's because it doesn't define you. It was just not necessarily a bad coaching session, but a bad one for a certification, right? Because you want to put your best foot forward. It's like going on a fucking first date. You want to put the best foot forward. If they're judging you, you can't just throw out one and be like, well, the other ones were good, but you can judge me based off of this. No, you can't. No, you can't. You give out mediocre, you're going to receive mediocre, right? So once I actually started talking, I basically hit myself with it. I wasn't wrong for being upset, but I wasn't seeing the full picture. I was so deep in my emotions that I wasn't acknowledging the very valid reason that this session wasn't actually the strongest one to get the assessment for, right? It wasn't about me failing. It was about the thing that I submitted. But my emotions had taken over, right? This wasn't the best representation of my work as a coach, right? It was a hard pill to swallow, but it was the truth. But we want to avoid the actual truth, so we spiral, right? This is why feeling your feelings is non-negotiable. You swallow your feelings or you say, I'm just fine, and you try and push through. No, let those feelings soar so that you can control them more, a little more, and then you can sit there and have a conversation like I did and say, I'm really upset about this, but not attack them. You're not getting aggressive. You're just saying your frustrations in your way because that's who you are. Right? And I even told her afterwards, I was like, at least you always know what to expect from me. Like, you don't have to guess what feelings I'm feeling because I express them to you. And she was like, that is very true. We always know what you're thinking and what your emotions are. Okay? So that's the whole point in this. But here's the thing, right? I wouldn't have gotten clarity if I hadn't let those frustrations actually, I want to say metastasize, but mature. If I didn't let them mature and then send the email, I could have ignored it and been like, I'm not even going to email them back. I'm just going to say, fuck it, right? But if I hadn't allowed that, I wouldn't have gotten clarity in my own mind, and I wouldn't had this moment of growth where I was like, oh, actually not everything is about you, Angela, right? It's just about your session, right? So this is what happens when you look at it from a third eye view, right? You take a step back, you take your emotions out, and let's break down, right, the science for a second. So when you fail, your brain doesn't treat it like, oh, that shit sucks. Let's try again. It treats it like you've been rejected from the tribe and left to die in the wild. That's why it feels so intense. The reason is because your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for fear and emotional processing, goes into overdrive. It's flooding your system with cortisol and adrenaline. So imagine you have all this adrenaline and cortisol coursing through your veins, and then what happens? Somebody tells you calm down or relax or it's not that serious, right? And then it's going to amp you up more because in your mind, you're like, no, it's fucking serious, right? And then when you start spiraling, what happens is your hippocampus, the part of your brain that stores memories, it literally decides that this moment is important. And if you don't allow it to be important, it will go in deeper. It digs up every other time you failed, thrown it in your face like a highlight reel of self-destruction. You're like, oh, nice reel, right? No, this is me being blown up. Wonderful reel. This is why you don't just think about the test you failed or the assignment you failed or how you failed your child today because you took them to school late, right? You suddenly remember every single time you were rejected, all your mistakes, every moment where you felt like you weren't enough. Now, then you have your prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain. All right, this is the logical part. This is the part that helps you think and problem solve. It gets hijacked. It's not gonna, you can't use it, okay? It's not even invited to the conversation until the emotional storm has calmed down. That's why you don't say, oh, well, I'll try again, right? And then you spiral out of control. You question everything. And before you know it, you've rewritten your entire life story around all the failures when 20 minutes ago, it wasn't a failure, right? Now everything's a failure. Or you're thinking you're succeeding at so much stuff, and then one thing happens, and all of a sudden, all those things that were just circumstance or happenings become the worst case scenario. That's why you have to let the emotions move through you before you can process them rationally. And the more that you suppress them, the worse it gets, okay? It doesn't work. You can't just ignore them. It's like a kid that's screaming at you and you're like, oh no, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. And then they're like, ah! And you're like, oh my God, why weren't my kids be good? Right? It doesn't work that way. You sit there and you could sit there and look at your child and say, oh, you want me to kiss your boo-boo? Fine, right? But if you don't kiss that boo-boo, if you don't acknowledge their feelings, shit show, right? You let them feel them. You let yourself feel them. You're moving through them. And then you can step back and analyze them and be okay with it. Because you're like, wow, I am allowed to have emotions, right? That is how you shift out of that spiral. Because the problem is that you're so scared of losing your shit that you lose your shit. So this is how you rewire your brain. And I'm actually going to have an entire series on rewiring your brain because the neural pathways are so fascinating. It takes weeks to build, and it's the reason why you have so many issues in your patterns. So stay tuned with that, because it's going to be a 5 podcast series. I'll be having it in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. But step 1, I want you to call out the spiral. Literally, fucking say it out loud if you have to, okay? I have to stop. Wait a second. I'm not failing. You say it as hard as you can. Or you say, am I really failing? Is this really the worst case scenario? Get raw with yourself. Are you just being toxic to yourself? When you say these things to yourself, it takes away the power that it has, because then you actually have to hit with the raw truth that the world doesn't revolve around you and your successes. Not everyone's out to get you. A lot of people just don't even give a shit because they're thinking the exact same thing you're thinking. They just don't fucking talk about it, or they can hide it better in front of you, right? Now, just because you fail at one thing doesn't mean you fail at life. Doesn't mean that you failed at that. It means it's a learning experience, right? But you can't learn as a learning experience until you accept that your fucking feelings are hurt. That's it, right? Right. And then you reframe it, okay? Instead of I failed, what did I learn? What can I learn? What do I do about this? Because we can sit there and cry and wallow for the rest of our lives and say, I'm wallowing, fuck off. I'm wallowing for the rest of my life. I'm just a horrible person. But that's not going to do anything. This is going to make you fucking wallow more. Oh my God. And then you're wallowing about wallowing. I'm so horrible. Oh my God, I really am horrible. I can't even get out of this. Pull yourself out of that, right? Pull it out. It stung because it mattered to me. So if it matters to me, get my head out of my ass and figure out how to fucking fix it, right? And then you build a resilient circuit. So that's when we have the neural pathways. They get stronger with repetition. So they're either going to get stronger with repetition with you being a whiny person and just blaming the whole world and eating Ben & Jerry's, or that is going to be your opportunity for growth, because you're going to start doing the uncomfortable things so that the uncomfortable things are comfortable as fuck. And you can have way more confidence, right? Every rejection is just a redirection. Again, every rejection is just a redirection. You don't just think differently. You train your brain to respond differently. And then take the next step, even if it doesn't make sense, even if you have no idea where your step is going to land. Your brain wants to keep you safe by avoiding failure. But if you stop trying, you're reinforcing fear. And then you're afraid of everything. You guys remember Monk, the detective? I mean, come on. Once you start believing it, it becomes your new reality. Do you really want fear to be your new reality? I want resilience to be my new reality, even though I'm tired, even though I'm exhausted. Sometimes the greatest things, oftentimes, almost every time, the greatest things are the things that you have to work your ass off. Okay? The only way to prove failure wrong is to keep moving forward, especially when you don't feel like it. Most importantly, and the thing is that neuroscience even backs it up. Studies show that failure activates the same parts of the brain that are responsible for learning and growth. In other words, every time you fail, your brain is rewiring itself to get better. So here's another fun fact. We got 2 more. Successful people fail more, not less. Michael Jordan got cut from high school basketball team. Oprah got fired from her first TV show. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who break through is that they use that failure as fuel and move forward. That is the real shift. That is the real difference. And that is the difference between fear and resiliency. All right. The only people, the last one, the only people who never fail are the ones who never take risks. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather fail 1,000 times than live a life where I never even tried. So, here's the truth. Failure sucks, but if you let yourself actually feel the frustration, sit in the discomfort, and then step back and see the lesson, you fucking win every single damn time. So what's the failure that's been holding you back? What's the one thing that made you feel like you're not enough? I challenge you to call out that lie. Say it fucking out loud. I don't even care if you're in the grocery store. And then I want you to take one step forward. Just do it. Nike says it. I believe it. Fucking do it. Because failure is not a dead end. It's the proving ground for who you're meant to be. Who you're meant to be. And if you're serious, if you're truly serious about rewiring your brain to stop repeating the same patterns in your relationships, your career, your life, I want you to hit me up. Because I have my 8-week real and raw relationships reset. This is where we stop settling and start building real confidence and connection. Because you have that real confidence and connection within yourself. You don't get to the next level without failing. You don't grow without struggling. So the real question is, are you willing to fail forward? Or are you gonna let your brain keep you stuck in the same old story? I know what I'm doing, but if you want to keep doing it, then don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me, Instagram, Facebook, all the things. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Go ahead and check out realrawrelationships.com.